Ambassador Lee Yuna stood alone in the center of the great chamber. Around her, rising in endless circles, toward a ceiling she could barely see, sat the representatives of 1,000 alien species. Their eyes watched her with boredom, with contempt, with the casual dismissal that humanity had learned to expect over 60 long years. The Galactic Council chamber on Harmony Prime was built to make visitors feel small. It was working. "The petition from Earth is noted," said High Arbiter Veloth from his elevated throne. He was Myrani, a species of tall, thin beings with silver skin and 4 arms. His voice echoed through the chamber like the judgment of a god, and denied. Again, Yuna kept her face calm. She had trained for this moment. She had prepared her words carefully. "High Arbiter, humanity has followed every law of the Council for 60 years. We have paid every tax. We have served in your peacekeeping missions. We have asked for nothing but the same rights given to every other member species." Valeth made a sound that might have been laughter. "You have been members for only 60 years. The Corvani waited 300 before receiving full rights. The Ilvani waited 500. You humans are always in such a hurry. Our colonies grow, High Arbiter. Our population expands. We need the same voting rights and territory access as other species. This is not ambition. This is survival." "Survival," Veleth repeated. He leaned forward, his forearms spreading wide. "Let me tell you about survival, Ambassador. Your species comes from a world of earthquakes, storms, and predators. You evolve by killing everything around you. Your history is written in blood. And you expect us to give you more power?" He shook his head slowly. "Humanity is too young, too emotional, too dangerous. Learn your place. Be grateful we allow you in the Council at all." Yuna opened her mouth to respond, but Veleth raised one hand. "This discussion is over. Return to your people. Tell them to be patient. In another 200 years, perhaps we will talk again." The chamber fell silent. Yuna stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of 1,000 stares. Then she turned and walked out, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. She did not know that while she argued for peace, her people were already dying 3 days earlier. On the colony world of New Busan in the Outer Reach, a young teacher named Yoon Ji-hoon was reading stories to his students. The children sat in a circle around him, their faces bright with wonder as he told them tales of Earth, of mountains and oceans, of animals and forests, of a blue sky they had never seen. The first explosion came without warning. The ceiling cracked. Dust fell. The children screamed. Ji-hoon grabbed as many as he could, pulling them under the heavy tables, covering their small bodies with his own. Outside, ships filled the sky. They were Corvani warships, hundreds of them, raining fire down on the colony. The Corvani were reptilian beings, cold-blooded in body and in spirit. They had come with one purpose: to erase every human from the Outer Reach. The attack lasted 3 hours. When it ended, New Busan was burning. The colony of Haven's Rest was burning. The settlement of Jinhae Station was nothing but floating debris. 2 million humans died that day. Men and women, children and elderly. Families who had built new lives among the stars. All gone. Ji-hoon died holding his students, trying to shield them from the flames. He was 26 years old. His older sister, Captain Yoon Soo-min, received the news while on patrol near the border. Her ship, the destroyer Unbreakable, had been investigating reports of Corvani movement in the area. They arrived at New Busan 12 hours too late. Soo-min stood on the bridge and looked at the view screen. Where a city had once stood, there was only black smoke and red fire. Bodies floated in the harbor. The school where her brother worked was a crater, Captain, her first officer said softly. "We're receiving transmissions from the surface. There are survivors. Not many, but some. Begin rescue operations," Soo-min said. Her voice was steady. Her hands were steady, but something inside her had changed forever. "And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what happened here. Tell them everything." On Harmony Prime, Ambassador Lee Yuna received the news just as her transport was preparing to leave. She turned around and marched back into the council chamber, pushing past guards who tried to stop her. "Hi, Arbiter," she shouted, her voice cutting through the murmur of alien conversation. "The Corvani have attacked our colonies. 3 worlds destroyed. 2 million dead." Velith looked down at her with mild annoyance. "Yes, we have received reports." "Reports? This is an act of war. The Council must respond. The Corvani claim that your colonies were built on their ancestral territory. It is an internal matter for their species to resolve." Una could not believe what she was hearing. Ancestral territory? Those worlds were empty when we settled them. The Corvani never even visited that sector. "Nevertheless," Velith said calmly, "the Council cannot interfere in disputes between member species. If humanity wishes to file a formal complaint, the process takes approximately 40 years. 40 years? Our people are dead now." Velith's eyes grew cold. "Ambassador, I warned you earlier about your place in this galaxy. Perhaps this incident will teach humanity some humility. Be grateful the Corvani stopped at 3 colonies. They could have taken more." Una stared at him. In that moment, she understood something terrible. The Council had known. They had known the attack was coming, and they had done nothing. Perhaps they had even approved it a lesson to keep humanity in line. "I see," she said quietly. "I understand perfectly now." She left without another word. 1 week later, Una stood before the United Earth Parliament in the Great Hall beneath the mountains of Korea. Every seat was filled. Every screen showed her face. The entire planet was watching. She told them everything. The petition denied. The attack ignored. The Council's indifference to human lives. When she finished, Admiral Park Yemen rose from his seat. He was an older man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He had led the Earth Defense Fleet for 20 years, always preparing, always waiting. "Ambassador," he said, "how long until the fleet is ready?" From the back of the chamber, a woman stood. Dr. Han Minji, Chief Scientist of Earth's Defense Council. Adjusted her glasses and smiled a small, cold smile. "Admiral," she said, "the fleet has been ready for 30 years. We were simply waiting for permission." Yemen nodded slowly. He looked around at the Parliament, at the faces filled with grief and anger and determination. "Then we are done waiting," he said. "We are done asking. We are done hoping they will see us as equals." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was iron. "If the galaxy will not give us respect, we will take it. And God help anyone who stands in our way." The Parliament rose as one, and their voices shook the ancient, the mountains above. War was coming to the stars, deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Hidden from every scanner and satellite in the galaxy, the true power of humanity waited in silence. Dr. Han Minji walked through the massive shipyard carved into the heart of Asteroid Station 7. Around her, stretching for kilometers in every direction, warships hung in their construction cradles. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. "Project Prometheus," she said to the Parliament members who followed her. 30 years of work, 30 years of secrecy, 30 years of preparing for the day we knew would come. Admiral Park Yemen stood beside her, watching the faces of the politicians as they realized what they were seeing. Some of them had known. Most had not. The secret had been kept by only a handful of people across 3 generations. "How is this possible?" asked one senator, his voice shaking. "How did we build all of this without anyone knowing?" Minji smiled. "We told the galaxy we were mining asteroids. We told them we were building research stations. Every ship that left Earth carried hidden cargo. Every scientist who disappeared was working here. The Council never bothered to check because they never believed we were capable of this." She pointed to the nearest ship, a massive battlecruiser bristling with weapons. The Eternal Resolve? Flagship of the new fleet. Faster than anything the Corvani have. Stronger than anything the Council has ever built. And we have 3,000 more just like it. Lieutenant Kim Woo-jan stepped forward. He was young for his rank, only 32, but his mind was sharper than anyone in the fleet. He had spent his entire adult life studying alien warfare, learning their tactics, finding their weaknesses. The council thinks they know humans, Wujin said, activating a holographic display. They think we are emotional and undisciplined. They are wrong. The display showed charts and diagrams comparing human abilities to those of the major council species. Human reaction time is 3 times faster than the Corvani. Our endurance is 5 times greater than the Mirani. We can survive injuries that would kill most species instantly. We adapt to new situations faster than any race they have ever encountered. He changed the display to show battle formations. But our greatest advantage is not physical. It is mental. Every species in the council follows strict military doctrine. They learn one way to fight and never change. Humans do not work like this. We improvise. We create new tactics in the middle of battle. We do things that should be impossible because no one told us they were impossible. Admiral Yemen nodded slowly. The galaxy has underestimated us because we are young. They forgot that young species have something old species lose: hunger, desperation, the will to survive at any cost. He turned to face the assembled leaders of Earth. I will not lie to you. This war will be hard. We will lose ships. We will lose soldiers. Some of our worlds may burn before this is over. But I promise you this: we will not lose. We cannot lose. Because losing means the end of everything we are. 3 days later, the fleet moved on Harmony Prime. Ambassador Li Yuna appeared before the Galactic Council one final time. But this time, she was not alone. Behind her, visible through the holographic transmission, stood Admiral Park Yemen in full military uniform. High Arbiter Velith looked down at them with amusement. Ambassador, have you come to apologize for your outburst? Perhaps to beg for mercy on behalf of your primitive species? No, High Arbiter, Yuna said. Her voice was calm and cold. I have come to deliver a message. She held up a document, written in the formal language of the Council. This is a declaration of war. The United Earth Government hereby declares a state of open conflict with the Corvani Dominion and any species that supports them. We will accept surrender at any time. We will treat prisoners with dignity. But we will not stop until justice is served for the 2 million humans murdered in the Outer Reach.
Oh.
The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens shouted in 100 languages. Some laughed. Others looked confused. The idea that humans would challenge the mighty council was absurd. It was like an insect challenging a giant. Velith raised his forearms for silence. When the noise died down, he smiled his thin, cruel smile. How adorable, he said. The humans think they can fight us. Ambassador, let me explain something to you. The Council commands the military forces of over 1,000 species. We have millions of warships. We have weapons that could crack your little planet in half. What do you have? A few hundred ships? A species that has barely learned to travel between stars? Yemen stepped forward, his image growing larger in the transmission. You want to know what we have, Arbiter? We have 60 years of anger. We have 2 million graves that demand justice. We have soldiers who would rather die than kneel. And we have something you never expected? He smiled, and there was no warmth in it. We have 3,000 warships waiting at your border. Would you like to count them yourself? The chamber fell silent again. This time, the silence was different. This time, there was fear in it. You are bluffing, Velith said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. Am I? Yemen asked. Then send your fleet to stop us. We will be waiting. The transmission ended. In the days that followed, the galaxy watched in disbelief as human ships appeared at the edge of Corvani space. Scout vessels from a dozen species confirmed the impossible. The humans were telling the truth. Their fleet was massive, modern, and ready for war. Warlord Greth of the Corvani Dominion laughed when he received the reports. His species had conquered 40 worlds. They had crushed rebellions and destroyed civilizations. These soft pink humans were nothing to fear. Gather the fleet, he ordered. All of it. 800 ships. We will meet these humans in space and show them what real warriors look like, his advisors agreed. The Corvani were the greatest military power allied with the Council. Their ships were feared throughout the galaxy. This would be a quick victory, a demonstration of power that would put humanity back in its place forever. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Captain Yoon Soo-min watched the enemy fleet forming in the distance. 800 warships, ranged in the traditional Corvani battle formation, a rigid wall of firepower designed to overwhelm opponents with sheer force. "Lieutenant Kim," she said quietly. Analysis. Woojin studied his displays, his fingers dancing across the controls. They're following standard doctrine. Heavy ships in front, support vessels behind. Fighters in reserve. Predictable. Can we beat them? Woojin looked up at her and smiled. "Captain, we've been studying the Corvani for 30 years. We know every move they will make before they make it. We know the weakness in their shields, the blind spot in their sensors, the flaw in their reactor design." He paused. "They built their fleet to fight other aliens. They never imagined fighting humans." Soo-min nodded. She thought of her brother, of the children he died protecting, of the smoke rising from New Busan. "All ships," she said into the fleet-wide channel. "This is Captain Yoon. Today, we fight for everyone we have lost. Today we show the galaxy who we really are. No mercy for the Corvani war machine. But remember, we are human. We do not murder civilians. We do not torture prisoners. We fight with honor, or we are no better than them." She took a deep breath. "All ships forward. Let's remind the galaxy why they should have feared us from the beginning, the Battle of Corvani." Prime was about to begin. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the two fleets faced each other in the darkness of space. On one side, 800 Corvani warships formed their legendary wall of death. Their hulls were black as night, covered in weapons that had burned 100 worlds. Warlord Greth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Claw of Victory, watching the human fleet with cold reptilian eyes. On the other side, the vanguard of humanity's hidden fleet waited in perfect formation. 300 ships against 800. The numbers favored the Corvani. But numbers, as the galaxy was about to learn, were not everything. "They're not moving," Greth's second officer reported. "They're just sitting there." Greth made a hissing sound of contempt. "They're afraid. They have seen our fleet and lost their courage. Perhaps they will run. It would save us the trouble of killing them." "Warlord, should we attack?" "Not yet. Let them feel fear. Let them understand what they are facing. Then we destroy them." On the Eternal Resolve, Captain Yoon Soo-min watched the Corvani fleet with calm patience. Beside her, Lieutenant Kim Woojin studied the enemy formation with the focus of a chess master examining the board. "They're waiting for us to make the first move," Woojin said. "Standard Corvani psychology. They want to respond to our attack, use our momentum against us. Then we give them what they expect," Soo-min replied. "Fighter squadrons, begin your approach. Make it look desperate." Across the human fleet, hundreds of small fighter craft launched into space. They flew toward the Corvani wall in a scattered, chaotic pattern, exactly the kind of undisciplined attack the aliens expected from emotional humans. Greth watched the fighters approach and laughed. "Fools. They send insects to fight dragons. All ships, prepare to destroy the fighters, then advance on the main fleet." The Corvani weapons powered up, targeting systems locked onto the incoming fighters. In seconds, they would fire, and the tiny human ships would be dust. But the fighters never reached weapons range at a precise distance. Calculated by Woojin to the meter, every fighter suddenly changed direction. They split into dozens of groups, each one curving around the Corvani formation instead of through it. The Corvani gunners tried to track them, but the fighters were too fast, too unpredictable, moving in patterns no alien tactical computer could predict. "What are they doing?" Greth demanded. "They're not attacking. They're just flying around us." "Warlord, they're deploying something. Small devices. Thousands of them. Mines." Greth's eyes narrowed. "Destroy them now." But it was too late. The devices were not mines. They were sensor jammers, communication disruptors, something the human scientists called ghost projectors, machines that created false images on enemy screens. In seconds, the Corvani fleet was blind and deaf. Their sensors showed human ships everywhere. Their communications were nothing but static. Then the real attack began. The human main fleet advanced in perfect coordination. But they did not attack the front of the Corvani wall, where the enemy expected them. Instead, they curved around the flanks, striking from angles the rigid Corvani formation could not cover. All ships, new targets, Sumin commanded, focus on their engine sections. We don't want to destroy them. We want to stop them. Human weapons were different from anything the Corvani had faced. Plasma cannons that burned through shields, magnetic pulse bombs that shut down power systems, precision strikes that disabled without destroying. The humans were not trying to kill, they were trying to win. The first Corvani ships began to drift, their engines dead, their weapons silent. Then more, then dozens. The mighty wall of death was crumbling from the edges inward. On the claw of victory, Greth roared in fury. This is impossible. Reform the fleet. Break their formation. But his orders never reached his other ships. The communications were still jammed. His captains fought alone following their training, doing exactly what they had always done and dying because of it. Lieutenant Kim Woo-jin predicted every move they would make. 3 hours into the battle, half the Corvani fleet was disabled or destroyed. Human losses were minimal: a few dozen fighters, 2 damaged cruisers. No capital ships lost. Sumin watched the destruction with a face of stone. There was no joy in this. These were enemies, yes, but they were also living beings dying in the cold darkness of space. She thought of her brother again. She thought of the children. She thought of what the Corvani had done to innocent people who had never held a weapon. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship." Greth's face appeared on the screen. His reptilian features were twisted with rage and something else, something his species rarely felt. Fear. "You fight without honor." He screamed, "You use tricks and deception. This is not how warriors battle." Sumin leaned forward. "You killed 2 million of our people. Women, children, elderly, people who could not fight back. And you lecture us about honor? They were in our territory. They had to die. They were in their homes. They were living their lives. They were my brother's students." Sumin's voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow more frightening than any shout. "You burned them alive, warlord." You laughed as they screamed. Greth's eyes widened. For the first time, he understood. This was not a random human commander. This was someone with a personal stake in the battle. Someone who had lost everything. "I offered terms," he said quickly. "Surrender conditions. We will withdraw. We will pay reparations. Just stop this. Now you want to negotiate. Now that you are losing?" Sumin shook her head slowly. "No, warlord. You will surrender unconditionally. Your ships will power down their weapons. Your soldiers will be taken prisoner. And you will stand trial for the murder of innocent people. You cannot judge me. I am warlord of the Corvani. You are a war criminal. And criminals face justice." Sumin cut the transmission. 6 hours after it began, the Battle of Corvani Prime was over. 400 Corvani ships were destroyed. 300 more were captured. The remaining 100 fled into deep space, scattered and broken. Human casualties were fewer than 2,000 tragic. But nothing compared to the devastation they had inflicted on the enemy. Warlord. Greth was taken prisoner when human marines boarded his flagship. He fought until the end, killing 3 soldiers before they brought him down with stun weapons. He would live to face his trial. On Harmony Prime, the Galactic Council received news of the battle in stunned silence. "This is impossible," Velith whispered. The Corvani fleet was one of the most powerful in the galaxy. How could humans destroy it in one day? Counselor Tessa of the Elvani stood slowly. She was ancient, one of the oldest beings in the chamber. Her people had been recording history for 10,000 years. "Hi, Arbiter," she said quietly. "I warned the Council about humans when they first requested membership. I showed you our ancient texts, the prophecies of the Watchers who mapped the stars before any of our species were born. Those are myths, Velith said dismissively. Children's stories, are they? Tessa's eyes were sad. The Watchers spoke of a species from a world of death, a world of fire and ice, of predators and storms. They said this species would seem weak at first, young and small among the great civilizations, but they warned us, do not mistake patience for weakness. Do not mistake kindness for fear. For when this species finally rises, the stars themselves will tremble. The chamber was silent. The Watchers called them the Burning Ones, Tessa continued, because they burn bright enough to blind the stars. And we, in our arrogance, tried to put out their fire. She shook her head slowly. Now we will all see how bright humans can truly burn. High Arbiter. Velith stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to Admiral Borak, commander of the Council's combined military forces. Gather every ship we have, he ordered. Every species, every fleet, every weapon. If the humans want war, we will give them war they cannot. Imagine. Admiral Borak nodded, and, left to carry out his orders, the largest military force in galactic history was about to be assembled, and its target was Earth. 5,000 warships gathered at the edge of Council space. They came from 40 different species, representing the combined military might of a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Admiral Borak stood on the bridge of his command vessel, watching the fleet assemble with grim satisfaction. This is the largest force ever gathered in galactic history, his aide reported. No species has ever faced such power. Borak nodded slowly. He was Gorvani, a species known for their strategic minds and cautious nature. Unlike Warlord Greth, he did not underestimate humans. He had studied the Battle of Corvani Prime carefully. He had seen how the humans' foe, unpredictable, creative, willing to take risks that other species would never consider. But 5,000 ships against 3,000. Even humans could not defeat those odds. The human vanguard fleet remains in Corvani territory, his intelligence officer reported. They are establishing control over captured worlds. Their main fleet has returned to Earth space. Good, Borak said. They have split their forces. We will strike Earth directly. Without their homeworld, human resistance will collapse. High Arbiter, Velith appeared on the communications screen, his silver face showing rare approval. Admiral, the Council has granted you full authority for this operation. Do whatever is necessary to end the human threat. Whatever is necessary. Borak understood what was not being said. The Council wanted humanity destroyed completely. No surrender. No negotiation. Total extinction. He pushed aside his personal feelings about such orders. His duty was to his species and to the Council. If humans had to die for peace to return, then humans would die. The fleet will depart within the hour, he said. In 3 days, Earth will burn. But far away, in the hidden communication centers of Earth's intelligence network, Dr. Hanmingi was listening to every word. They're coming, she reported to Admiral Park Yemen. 5,000 ships? Their target is Earth. They plan to strike while our vanguard is still in Corvani space. Yemen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. They think we left Earth undefended. They think we are fools who would abandon our home. Sir, should we recall Captain Yoon's fleet? No. Let them come to us. We've prepared for this. He turned to the tactical display showing Earth and the entire solar system. Activate all defense platforms. Wake up the Second Fleet and tell the orbital stations to ready the Prometheus protocol. 3 days later, Admiral Borak's fleet entered the solar system. They expected to find a weakly defended world. They expected easy victory. They expected humans to beg for mercy instead. They found hell waiting for them. Earth was surrounded by a ring of orbital defense. Platforms, massive stations bristling with weapons that had been hidden as civilian infrastructure for decades. Asteroid fortresses, carved from the same rocks that had hidden the shipyards, powered up their engines and moved into battle position. And hanging in orbit around the pale blue planet, freshly activated and fully armed, waited the Second Fleet, 2,000 human warships that the galaxy had never known existed. Possible, Borak whispered, as his sensors revealed the true scale of Earth's defenses. How do they have so many ships? Where did they come from? But there was no time for questions. The battle had already begun. Earth's orbital platforms opened fire first. They did not aim at individual ships. They created walls of energy that forced the Council fleet to break formation. Ships that had been flying in perfect coordination suddenly found themselves scattered, separated. Fighting alone? Then the Second Fleet struck. Admiral Park, Yemen commanded from the defense station Fortress Sol. At 70 years old, he was the oldest active military commander in human history. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Focus on their command ships, he ordered calmly. Break their coordination. Make them fight as individuals. The human ships moved like predators, hunting in packs, striking at weak points, disappearing before the enemy could respond. Council ships fired at empty space while human weapons found their targets with perfect precision. Admiral Borak tried to maintain order. He issued commands, reorganized formations, attempted to use his numerical advantage. But the humans were too fast, too unpredictable. Every time he formed a new strategy, they seemed to already know it and counter it before he could act. How are they doing this? He demanded. How do they know our plans? He did not know that Dr. Han Mingi had spent 30 years studying Council communication systems. She had broken their codes decades ago. She knew every order Borak gave before his own officers did. For 2 days, the battle raged across the solar system. Council ships died by the hundreds. Their crews fought bravely, but they were fighting an enemy who knew everything about them, while they knew nothing in return. On the second night, Borak ordered boarding operations. If they could not defeat human ships, perhaps they could defeat human soldiers. It was his worst mistake. Human Marines were waiting for them. These were not soft scientists or frightened civilians. These were warriors who had trained their entire lives for close combat. They fought in corridors that aliens found cramped and confusing. They used weapons designed for the tight spaces of starships. They moved in darkness that blinded species who relied on different light spectrums, and they did not stop fighting ever. A council general reported back to Borak with terror in his voice. They will not surrender. They will not retreat. We kill one, and 2 more take their place. They fight even when wounded. They fight even when dying. What are these creatures? On a captured council ship, a young human soldier named Park Yunji held her position against 20 enemy warriors. She was bleeding from 3 wounds. Her ammunition was almost gone. Her squad was dead around her. She fought until her rifle was empty. Then she fought with her knife. Then she fought with her bare hands. When council soldiers finally brought her down, she was still trying to crawl toward the enemy. Still trying to complete her mission, she died with a smile on her face. Knowing that her sacrifice had given her fellow soldiers time to take the engine room, that ship was captured an hour later. Stories like Yunji's spread through the council fleet. They whispered about humans who laughed at death, who seemed to grow stronger when they were wounded, who refused to accept defeat even when victory was impossible. Fear began to spread. On the 3rd day, Admiral Borak knew he had lost. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. His soldiers were refusing to board human vessels. His communications were compromised. His strategies were useless. He sent a message to Admiral Park Yemen. "You have one," Borak said. His voice was tired. "I ask for terms of surrender. Please stop the killing." Yemen's face appeared on the screen. He looked at the alien admiral with something like respect. "Your soldiers fought bravely, Admiral. They followed orders that never should have been given. The Council sent you here to die. You understand that now?" Borak nodded slowly. "I understand many things now. I understand that we never knew what humans were. We saw your bodies and thought you were weak. We saw your emotions and thought you were undisciplined. We saw your youth and thought you were primitive. We were wrong about everything," as Yemen said simply. "You were... What happens now? Your ships will power down their weapons. Your soldiers will be treated as prisoners of war, with dignity and care. No one else needs to die today, Admiral. The killing can stop." Borak gave the order. Across the solar system, council ships went silent. The battle was over. That night, Admiral Borak sent a final message to the Galactic Council. It was received in the Great Chamber on Harmony Prime, where High Arbiter Velith and 1,000 representatives watched in stunned silence. "They are not what we believed," Borak said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and something like awe. "They are something far worse. They are survivors. They have survived everything their world threw at them. They survived our contempt. They survived our attacks. And now they have survived the greatest military force the galaxy has ever assembled." He paused. "If you have any wisdom left, any sense of self-preservation, you will make peace with them. Because I promise you, if you continue this war, they will not stop until they stand in that very chamber. And you will have no one to blame but yourselves." The transmission ended in the great chamber of the Galactic Council. High Arbiter Velith sat in silence for a long time. Then, slowly, he reached for his personal communicator. He had a call to make to Ambassador Lee Yuna. 6 months had passed since humanity declared war on the stars. The galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet now numbered 5,000 ships, including hundreds of captured council vessels that had been repaired and crewed by human sailors. They hung in space around Harmony Prime, their weapons silent but ready. Every species in the galaxy could see them. Every species understood what they meant. The age of human submission was over, Ambassador. Lee Yuna walked through the corridors of Harmony Prime for the last time as a visitor. Soon, she would return as something else entirely. Behind her, Admiral Park Yemen moved with the slow dignity of a man who had carried the weight of history on his shoulders. "Are you nervous?" he asked quietly. Yuna smiled. "I was nervous when I stood before the council begging for crumbs. I was nervous when Veloth laughed at our petition. Today I feel only peace. The council will not like the terms we are offering. The council no longer has a choice in what they like." Yuna stopped at the entrance to the Great Chamber. "They had 60 years to treat us as equals. They chose not to. Now they will accept what we give them." The doors opened, and they entered. The chamber was fuller than Yuna had ever seen it. Representatives from every species in the galaxy had gathered to witness this moment. Some faces showed anger. Others showed fear. Very few showed something like hope. High Arbiter Velith sat on his elevated throne, but he seemed smaller somehow. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by the careful watchfulness of a being who finally understood his own mortality. Captain Yoon Soo-min stood at the front of the chamber, representing the military that had made this moment possible. Her face was calm, but her eyes held the weight of everything she had lost and everything she had done. Lieutenant Kim Woo-jin stood beside her, now promoted to admiral. The strategist whose brilliant mind had won battles that should have been unwinnable. And Dr. Han Mingi was there too. The scientist whose 30 years of secret work had given humanity the tools to defend itself. Yuna took her place at the speaker's platform. The same platform where she had been humiliated so many times before. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice clear and strong. 6 months ago, you dismissed humanity's petition for equal rights. You called us primitive, emotional, dangerous. When the Corvani murdered 2 million of our people, you called it an internal matter and refused to help. She let the words hang in the air. No one spoke. No one moved. We came to you asking for respect. You gave us contempt. We came asking for justice. You gave us indifference. So we stopped asking. Yuna's eyes swept across the chamber. We took what you would not give. We fought for what you said we did not deserve. And we won. High Arbiter Velith spoke for the first time. "What do you want from us?" His voice was quiet, defeated. "We want what we always wanted," Yuna replied. "Nothing more, nothing less. Full membership in the council with complete voting rights. Reparations for the 6 decades of discrimination and for the colonies that were destroyed. War crimes tribunals for Warlord Greth and everyone who ordered or participated in the massacre of innocent humans. And if we refuse..." Admiral Yemen stepped forward. "Then we will take this station. We will dissolve the council. We will build something new from its ashes, something that truly represents all species equally. He paused. But we would prefer not to do that. We did not fight this war to become conquerors. We fought to become equals. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some species had expected humans to demand revenge, to enslave their enemies, to do what so many conquering civilizations had done throughout history. The offer of peace, true peace, not subjugation, was unexpected. Counselor Tessa of the Elvani rose from her seat. I have watched this situation from the beginning. I warned the council about underestimating humanity. I was ignored. She turned to face her fellow representatives. The humans could destroy us. Their fleet surrounds this station. Their soldiers could overwhelm our defenses in hours. Yet they offer us mercy. They offer us a chance to begin again. She looked directly at Veloth. High Arbiter, I move that we accept humanity's terms in full. Not because we are forced to, but because it is right. Because we were wrong, and the time has come to admit it. The vote took only minutes. Species after species voted in favor. Even the proudest civilizations, even those who had mocked humanity the loudest, raised their hands in agreement. In the end, only 3 species voted against. Their votes changed nothing. Veloth stood slowly. He descended from his throne and walked toward Yuna. For a long moment, they faced each other, the most powerful alien in the galaxy, and the human woman he had once dismissed as nothing. I accept your terms, Veloth said. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally recognize humanity as a full and equal member species. We will pay reparations. We will hold trials for war criminals. We will amend our charter to prevent any species from being treated as lesser ever again. He paused, and something like genuine emotion crossed his silver face. I offer my personal apology, Ambassador. I was wrong. The Council was wrong. We allowed prejudice to blind us to what humanity truly was. Yuna nodded slowly. I accept your apology, High Arbiter. But you should know, we did not do this for revenge. We did this because we had to. Because no species should have to beg for the right to exist. Captain Yoon Soo-min watched from her position near the front. In her mind, she saw her brother's face. She saw the children he had died trying to protect. She felt the rage that had burned inside her since the day New Busan fell. But she also felt something else now. Not peace, she was not sure she would ever feel true peace. But something like closure? Something like purpose. Veloth turned to her. Captain Yoon, I am told you lost family in the Outer Reach attack. You have every right to hate us. To hate me? Soo-min considered his words carefully. I did hate you, she admitted. I hated the Corvani. I hated the Council. I hated everyone who stood by while my people died. She took a breath. But hate is exhausting, High Arbiter. And we have work to do. I would rather spend my energy building something better than burning everything down. You would forgive us? After everything, forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. I will never forget what was done to us, but I can choose to move forward instead of living in the past. She met his eyes directly. That is what humans do, High Arbiter. We suffer, we grieve, and then we keep going. It is how we survived our world. It is how we will survive the galaxy. 3 months later, Ambassador Lee Yuna stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly as its first human president. The chamber had changed. No more elevated thrones, no more species ranked by age or power. Every representative sat at the same level. Every voice carried equal weight. We stand at a new beginning, Yuna declared. Not the beginning that any of us planned or expected, but a beginning nonetheless. The old ways are gone. The old prejudices must follow them. Behind her, Admiral Kim Woo-jin commanded a joint human-alien task force dedicated to preventing future atrocities. His tactical genius, once used for war, was now used for peace. Dr. Han Minji led a cultural exchange program, sharing human art and music and literature with species who had once seen humans as nothing but primitive warriors. They were learning that humanity was so much more. Admiral Park Yemen watched from the gallery. A young human officer stood beside him, watching the ceremony with wonder in her eyes. "Admiral, are you proud?" she asked. Jae-min shook his head slowly. "Pride is for victories. This was not a victory. This was a lesson one I hope the galaxy never forgets." "What lesson?" He watched Eunice speak. Watched the representatives of 1,000 species listen to a human for the first time in history with real attention and real respect. "That every species deserves dignity," he said quietly. "That fear is not the same as respect. That the measure of a civilization is not how it treats the powerful, but how it treats those who cannot fight back." He paused. "And that underestimating others because they are different is the most dangerous mistake any civilization can make." Far below, on the surface of Earth, the sun was setting over the mountains of Korea, in a small cemetery overlooking the sea. A stone marker bore the name of Yoon Ji-hoon, teacher, brother, hero. Fresh flowers lay at its base, placed there by his sister during her brief visit home, and on 1,000 worlds throughout the galaxy. In 1,000 languages, children grew up hearing new stories. Stories about the young species that refused to be broken. Stories about the soldiers who fought not for conquest but for justice. Stories about the leaders who chose mercy when they could have chosen revenge. The stars still burned in the endless darkness of space. But among them now, humanity stood tall, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals. Finally taking their rightful place in the great story of the universe. The age of waiting was over. The age of humanity had begun.